Okay, get yourself set for your cross-legged position. So sit on a lift and then come into good cross legs. Just get yourself level and just feel that you're sitting nice and evenly. So just getting the feeling from the seat bones, just feel that they are level. Just hold on to your knees and lift and open the chest. So make a really concerted effort to lift and open the chest. Drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just spend a few moments listening to the sound of the breath. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and just feeling how that makes the physical body feel. Feeling how the chest rises upwards and outwards with the inhalation. And how if you allow the inhalation to happen without resistance, then you glean more energy from the breath. So deep conscious inhalations, deep conscious exhalations. And then bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together, lengthen from the armpits into the elbows. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Focusing on slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and deliberate exhalations. So listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Allowing the breath to just drive the thought processes, just as you observe the action of the breath. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. And then with an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude. gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. And then hold on to that feeling, release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, and then bring the backs of the palms down onto your knees, and then lift your head and allow your eyes to gently open. So just spending a moment just reacquainting the breath. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side, drawing across from the abdomen, drawing the abdomen across the ribs, across the shoulders, across. And then come back to the center, lift up into the chest, drive the chest upwards, take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across your ribs, your shoulders. And then gently come back to the center. Just come off your lift and then sit back on your heels for Adho Mukha Virasana. So just wriggle into the inner heels, drawing the outer hips down into the inner heels, so that you really make good connection between the seat bones and the heels, and that the legs are really firmly sandwiched together. Consciously press the shins into the floor and then lift up into the chest, really elevating the chest up and out of the hips, and then hinging at the hips, come forwards, and then stretch your arms away. Taking deep inhalations as you go, deep exhalations, aiming to keep those seat bones down on the heels, and then bring the head down. To stretch out of the shoulders, feel where there is stiffness, where there is resistance, and put the out breath into that region. Just stretching out of the hips into the upper chest, into the armpit region, into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms, into the fingertips. Pushing the out breath into areas of resistance. Come up onto your knees Your hands nice and wide, and then bring the feet wide, and then come up into dog down. So keeping the knees bent initially so that you can just tilt the seat bones up to the ceiling, and then begin to straighten the legs, tighten the kneecaps, activating the frontal thigh muscles, lifting the frontal thigh muscles up towards the crease of the groin, pushing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Just feel that there is evenness of action. Observation, then activation. That continuous cycle of observation and activation, which draws us into the sensitivity state. Step your feet forward, come up into a standing position. Bring your feet as wide apart as the mat. Have your hands on your hips, lift up into the chest. Have blocks under your hands if you're just going into half uttanasana, supporting your back, or use a lift like like a tabletop for half uttanasana. Otherwise, we're going to go into full uttanasana. Have your hands on your hips for the moment. Lift the kneecaps, really lift the kneecaps, pressing the kneecap through to the back of the knee and lifting the kneecap up to the thigh. Feel that you can lift from the inner knee up towards the groin, and then raise your arms up. So initially with your arms nice and wide. Lifting the chest up to face the ceiling. And then bring the arms in a little, bring the thumb into the crease of the elbow, wrap your fingers around your elbows. If you're coming into half uttanasana, keep your arms straight and then hinge at the hips and then find your support. Otherwise, hinge at the hips with the elbows clasped. Keep that front chest consciously long, and then allow the top of the body to hang down. Just breathing evenly and deeply, pushing the kneecaps through to the back of the knee, turning the fronts of the thighs inward, lifting the backs of the thighs up towards the ceiling. Allowing the top of the body to hang down, but you've got to charge up the legs. Lifting the inner knees up towards the groin. Keeping the center of the heel down on the floor. Okay, release your hands down to the floor. Just come into half uttanasana. And then just come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up if you need to. Just come into Tadasana, inner edge of the feet together, lifting up into the chest. So breathe in nice and evenly, in through the nose and out through the nose. Spread the toes. Hit your shins back. Tighten the kneecaps. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Tuck the tailbone in. Just breathing evenly and deeply. Bring your arms out nice and wide. In towards the chest, and then step or jump the feet nice and wide. Just lift up into the chest, turn the left toes in very slightly, stamping the big toe into the floor, stretching out into the little toe side, keeping that kneecap tightened, and then turn the right leg all the way out, turning the feet all the way out so that the inner edge of the foot lines up with the front of the front edge of the mat. And then just activate the kneecaps, really tighten the kneecaps, turning the legs outwards so that the little toe side of the feet make good connection with the floor. Stretch your arms out, extend out into the chest, and then come down, find the shin, and then look up. Look up, or look down, or look forwards, or maybe a combination, which helps to clear out the sinuses. Lift the feet, lift out of the feet, up into the shins, into the knees, into the hips, up into the chest. Come back to the center, swap the feet around, turn the right toes in slightly, the left leg and foot all the way out. Turning the legs outwards, lift up into the chest, and then just stretch over to the left. Just feeling the stretch of the legs. Breathing into areas of resistance, breathing out into areas of resistance. Come back to the center, bring the feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together. Come back into Tadasana, lift up into the chest. Just focusing on the breath. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Okay, we're going to do padangusthasana. If you've got a bad back, then you can do instead, if you've got a back that you're not kind of 100% confident with, then you can use the back of a chair or the table, and you can just come into this half uttanasana shape. Otherwise, or if you know that you can't reach the floor, then use a belt and hook the belt underneath the big toes and then just come forwards with a straight back, just as far as you can come, and then you've got a tug of war with the big toes. Otherwise, have the feet hip width apart, and then turn the toes in. So again, you can turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Now this placement of the feet, turning the toes in, starting to turn these legs inwards, are all good actions for the hips. So when we come forwards into standing forward bends, if you have the toes turned inwards, if you have the thighs turned inwards, then it gives you extra space in the hips. So just tighten the kneecaps, lift up into the chest, drive the chest upwards and raise up with the arms. Just breathe into virasana. My arms shoulder width apart this time. And then hinge at the hips, keep your arms straight, keep your chest straight, keep your chest lifted as you come forwards, hinging entirely at the hips. Just come halfway, rest your hands on the back of a chair if you are protecting your back. Otherwise, keep the front chest long. Keep hinging entirely at the hips. Keep reaching forwards. Even when you can reach the floor, keep reaching into the middle of the room. And then take hold of the big toe with the index finger and the middle finger underneath the big toe, and then the thumb wrapped around the outside of the big toe. Maybe even draw the heels a little further apart at this stage. And then really reactivate those legs, tighten the kneecaps, press the kneecaps firmly into the sockets. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards, lift the backs of the thighs up towards the seat bones, project the chin and the chest forwards. Stamp the big toe into the floor and try and rip the big toe out of the floor like you're trying to rip a nail out of the floor. Breathe in evenly, keep the front chest long. And if you can straighten your back, then bend your elbows out to the side, drawing your body through the space between the legs. So keep that tug of war with the big toe. Keep the front chest as long as you can, lengthening from the abdomen to the diaphragm. Let your head hang down if you're coming down. Otherwise, if you're in half, if you're at the first stage, then just keep extending forwards. And then release just come back to the halfway point, extending the chest away. Release the hands. Just come into half uttanasana, extend the chin and the chest forwards a little more. And then bring your hands into your hips and then come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up if you need to. And then bring the inner edge of the feet together. Lift up into the chest. Just observe the energy that you release as you come up into Tadasana. Just breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. So when we come forwards, we want to keep this chest lifted open and broadly. So it's a feeling of lifting from the hinge of the hips all the way up into the diaphragm region, but then up into the diaphragm and then broadening at the collarbone. So it helps to gather the shoulder blades together so you get that broadness of the collarbone. So we're going to go into padahastasana. So it's the very similar pose, but this time you're going to stand on the back of your hands. So you come forwards, hinging at the hips, keeping this abdomen lifting up to the diaphragm. And then this time you stand on the backs of your hands, so the backs of the hands are on the floor. The palms of the hands are in contact with the soles of the feet, and then again you extend the chin and the chest forwards. If you can't do that, then get a folded blanket and then stand, bring the feet onto the top of the blanket, and then come back into padangusthasana, or do half virasana if you're protecting your back. So, or you can stick with the belt, and again, just you can wrap the belt around the underside of the foot this time, around the ball joint of the foot, and then again just working to lengthen the front chest forwards. So if you're using the belt, then have the blanket underneath the fronts of the feet. So just be in the first stage, turning your toes inwards consciously, hands on your hips, lift up into the chest, really lifting from the abdomen into the diaphragm. Raise your arms up, extend up, and then come forwards, hinging at the hips. So the same thing, keeping that abdomen lengthening into the diaphragm, keep reaching out. Even when you can reach the floor, keep reaching into the middle of the room. And then see if you can place your hands underneath your feet, the back of the hand in contact with the floor, the sole of the hand, the palm of the hand in contact with the sole of the foot. And then turn the heels out a little more, just to give you some extra space in the hips. And then extend the chin and the chest away. Keep the legs straight, so no bending in the knees. So it's better to have straight legs and a straight back than bent knees and a rounded back. So Andrew, see if you can release, just go back into padangusthasana if you can't come into this, but it's better to be working with straight legs and a straight back, because otherwise you're just going to hurt your back. So keep your back straight, lengthening the chin and the chest forwards. Can you straighten your legs, Andrew? Tighten the kneecaps, lifting into the front chest. It might just be the camera angle. Lifting up into the chest, breathing evenly. And then draw the front of the body into the space between the two legs. Okay, and then release your hands. Again, just come into half uttanasana, lengthening the chin and the chest forwards. And then we're going to walk forwards into dog down. If you need to, just come down onto your knees to come down into dog down. Otherwise, keep the legs straight. If you can, walk the hands forwards, have the hands shoulder width apart, have the feet hip width apart. And then just come up into dog down. Just observe how the legs perhaps feel a little more engaged, how the pose feels a little lighter than it did at the beginning. Just keeping the legs straight, lengthening from the hands into the wrists, into the elbows, into the armpits, into the hips. And then just gently come down onto your knees, and then just sit back up onto your hip and onto your heels. Just sit back on your heels and spend a moment just to observe the energy that you have released through your practice so far, flowing around the chest, around the arms, around the abdomen, around the legs. And then come back onto your seat bones, and then just lay down onto your back and come into supta baddhakonasana. So down onto your back, pull the feet in towards the seat bones, let the knees fall apart. Have a blanket for underneath your head if it rolls back, and then just lengthen yourself along the floor. Soles of the feet in contact. Put blocks underneath your thighs if you need them. Just breathe evenly in through the nose and out through the nose. Feel how the front of the pelvis gets an opening action from baddhakonasana. How the front of the pelvic region becomes more open. And then lengthen your arms up towards the ceiling, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then lengthen your arms along the floor. Again, just spend some time just observing how you are stretching. So this isn't an entirely passive pose. It feels quite passive perhaps in the legs, but then can you consciously push the heels together, push the outer edge of the feet together, so that you can broaden that pelvic region a little more. Lengthen from the hips up into the ribs, into the armpits, into the elbows, into the palms. So there's a conscious extension rather than just a completely passive relaxation. Breathing evenly, deeply listening to the sound of the breath. And then release and swap your fingers, swap the interlock of your fingers, release the arms, swap the interlock of your fingers, and then extend your arms again over your head, and then lengthen your arms again along the floor, keeping the feet engaged. So especially if you've got stiff hips, it really helps to press the feet together, especially the heels, so that you create a compactness of the hips rather than just allowing gravity to drag the hips down to the floor. So even if you're using supports from underneath the outside of the thighs, it's useful to just push the heels together. Keep that outer edge of the feet in really good contact. Okay, and then just gently release your arms, just rest your hands on your lower ribs for a moment, just let the body relax into the floor. For a moment, just letting the body release into the floor, just feel the energy in the hands, and then the forearms, and then the upper arms. Just be conscious of that energetic lightness that comes from the extension. Okay, and then draw your knees together. Just stay for a second or two with the knees together, the feet apart, just to kind of release the hips a little. And then when your hips are recovered, just draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from top to bottom, from side to side, just a gentle massage. And then just roll onto your side and then sit yourself up. Just sit in cross legs for a moment. So we're going to do chataranga dandasana, sometimes known as the plank. Now people often struggle with this, so there's a couple of versions that we can do together to try and kind of find a strong, a good plank pose. So you're going to come, first of all, you're going to just come down onto your front. You can just watch for a second if you want, or you can do it as I do it. So you're going to have your fingertips underneath your shoulders. Press the palms down onto the floor and then draw the elbows into the sides of the body. So if you let your elbows roll out like that, you'll never lift up. You've got to draw the elbows into the sides of the body and then tuck the toes under, and then really sharpen the action of the legs. So you keep the legs really firm, so you tighten the kneecaps, lift the thighs, and then tadassanaize those thighs, turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. That gives you this kind of softness of the buttocks, so you don't over clench. And then you push your hands into the floor, and then you see if you can hover. So let's just try that stage first. If your legs are firm, then your back is okay. If this feels like it's too strong, then put some blocks underneath your hands like this, and then see if you can lift from there. If this doesn't look right for your back today, you can go back into supta baddhakonasana, but it's not as bad for your back as it looks. So it's so as long as your legs are really firm, then your back is usually fine. So just come onto your front, fingertips underneath your shoulders, and then tuck your toes under, and then walk your toes towards your head a little bit. And then sharpen the action of the legs like you're doing Tadasana. Tighten the kneecaps. Press the kneecaps through to the backs of the knees. Turn the fronts of the thighs inward so that the backs of the thighs broaden and that your heels separate. So your feet are hip width apart at least. Don't go wider than hip width apart, but don't have the feet together because that's really strong. And then really lift the thighs off the floor, turning them inwards, and then just see if you can push your hands into the floor, keep your head lifted, keep your chest lifted, and then see if you can lift. Okay, and then just gently come down. Okay, so we're getting various shapes there. So this is the most common, and this isn't really what we're looking for at all. So we're getting this. So it's more like dog up, but you're not kind of supporting that dog up. That's really going to be really, really uncomfortable. So the aim is not to get not to lift the chest and forget about the legs, and it's not this either. So that's the kind of most common one that you see, where you kind of stick your buttocks up in the air. So it's hard, isn't it? It's a difficult pose. So one really good cheat for this is to get a block, and to have the block for your forehead. And then if you're wearing glasses, you probably have to take them off. And then you have your block pressing onto the forehead. And then as you come up, you push your head into the floor, into the block, and then lift. Don't overdo it if it's quite strong in your neck. So just be careful, be gentle with that. But see if that block, if you press the forehead into the block and then come up, see what you can see if that helps. So just the forehead onto the block. Again, prepare the legs as you were doing, tightening the kneecaps really, really firmly, lifting the thigh muscles really, really firmly, and then push your head into the floor. So Andrew, you're coming up into you're kind of lifting your chest, and you're straightening your arms as well. Your arms need to stay bent. So you're just a straight line across the floor. That's it. Okay, push your head into the floor and then see if you can just lift up from there. Don't stay too long, just a moment or two. There you go, Ruth, that's a little bit better, that's good. Okay, and then just gently come down. So the aim isn't to straighten your arms, because if you straighten your arms are too long, and if you straighten your arms, then you're just gonna, then you're coming more into dog up. So it's literally where the elbows are clamped into the side of the body, and then you just lift a couple of, about an inch or so off the floor. So it's not straight arms. That's kind of just a bad dog up. So let's try it one more time. If it's too much for you, then just rest. You can just rest on your front, letting your head rest down onto the floor, letting the arms rest at the sides of the body. So just one more time. So have the elbows, hands underneath your elbows, hands underneath your shoulders even, hands underneath your shoulders, draw the elbows in towards the body, turn your toes under, and then push your hands into the floor, and then lift. Breathe in evenly. Using the block for your head if you need it. Okay, and then just very gently come down. And then just come back, sit back on your heels. And then just lengthen forwards. Lengthening the tailbone down towards the heels. Okay, and then bring your hands underneath your shoulders, and then just lift yourself up, sit back on your heels, and again just feel the openness of the chest, the lightness of the energy that flows through the body after chaturanga. So chaturanga at first is offered quite an unpopular pose because it's quite hard, isn't it? But with a bit of practice and just kind of trying to get the legs to work as evenly as they do in tadasana, then we find that we can do the pose a little more easily. Just come into cross legs. So cross legs or half padmasana, whichever feels appropriate for you. And then hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest. So we'll come back to chaturanga, and we'll see if we can get a bit more confident. So it's a lot of upper body strength, isn't it? But if you use your head on the block, then actually chaturanga becomes a little more doable. Just breathe evenly and fully. Lift up into the chest, drive the chest upwards, and then turn to the right side, really easing out the chest, easing out the spine, turning the abdomen, the ribs, the shoulders, but keeping the neck soft. And then come back to the center. Lift up into the chest, driving the chest upwards. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the left. And then very gently come back to the center. Good. And then just come down onto your back, and we're going to go up into setubandha. So if you're not doing setubandha today, do supta, baddhakonasana like I'm doing here, although I think, sorry, the sun seems to be shining directly in the screen again. So supta baddhakonasana, feet together, knees apart, or bring your feet as close to the seat bones as you can, and then lift the seat bones up to the ceiling. Come right onto the tops of the shoulders by gathering your shoulder blades together, and then bring a brick into the tailbone region. Holding onto the edges of the mat, turning the crease of the elbows out to face the front. Lift up into the chest, and then extend one leg, extend, bring it back, extend the other. If that feels okay in your back, then extend both of your legs away. Just breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Breathing deeply, keeping the chest lifted. And then bring the feet back to the seat bones. Lift the seat bones up off the block, lift the block out of the way, and then just adjust your shoulders. Bring your back down, back onto the floor, and then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. Just listening to the sound of the breath. Pulling your knees in towards your chest, just ironing out any kinks in the spine. Okay, and then just rock yourself up into a seated position. Get your blanket for your head. If you feel like you've worked strongly in your back, so we've done chataranga, so it's quite nice to have bolster underneath your knees. And then just guide yourself back down into sirvasana. So bolster underneath your knees just helps to soften out the abdomen, soften out the lumbar, and then just allow yourself to release into the floor. Soften your back into the floor. Listen to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Just allowing the body to completely surrender into the straight line of the floor. As you release the physical body, observe the feeling of rising energy up to the top of the skin. Just feel as your energetic body rises up to the top of the skin, and then use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that energy evenly throughout the body. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers, just bend your knees, bring your feet onto the bolster, just have the knees together for a moment, just let your back just rest into the floor. And then draw your knees in towards your chest, just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a little gentle grounding massage, just bringing yourself back into the pose. And then gently roll over onto your right side, stretch out the top leg, come back up into a seated position, and then come into cross legs with your hands in the mat, just a final spinal lift. Drawing the breath in through your nose down into the abdomen, into the somatic region, just balancing out your energy. Observing the energy that you release through your practice, that good positive, clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the back bends and the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And then very gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you've really lifted your energy, giving yourself some good positive energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.